Welcome back to Higher Decency Living. Thank you, everybody who has been a listener since day one. This is many years in the making, many episodes of teaching and knowledge and trying to spread the ideas of equanimity and moving into a higher density than the current state we are in. And so I commend all of you who have been avid listeners and ones that have wanted to learn the truth and seek it for themselves and seek to understand. And with that, we are back to part two, to speak about the growth of these neo-Nazi groups in America and fundamentally to talk about their economic systems and things we should be aware of to say that's probably not the best economic idea because bad ideas rarely get better. So, Jason, please enliven me here.
Yeah, so this is part two. James H. Madole. He was American occultist and fascist. He lived from 1937 to 1979. He was the forefather of American fascist occultism. Of course, he came from New York City. Until he died, he was the founder of the National Renaissance
NRP.
Party. Fuck,
Yeah.
can't pronounce shit. He began his career, and I want to get into the second part of his life because it turns crazy, like all far-right shit does.
This is awesome.
He began his career as a Nazi enthusiast, and he copied Hitler's hatred of communism and the alliance with capitalist interests. So I want to stop right there. And maybe you could talk about this, so you had you had communism and capitalism on the globe for developed countries. And during that time, you have this third way that Hitler was promoting, this corporate state. And so I kind of want to get into, if you don't mind speaking about this, dangers of communism, capitalism, and, this third way.
Yeah. So first of all, let's talk about communism. Everybody is working for the state so that the state can give back to these individuals equal distribution of wealth, goods, and resources. All right. The economic state in the United States was a laissez-faire approach. You kind of just do it for you. The market will do its own thing, kind of hands off. People work for their own self-interest, and everything normalizes over time. And then Hitler had this idea of a very corporate state, one where the National Socialist Party over there in Germany would essentially create many different facets of industry. Each one would be run by a high up ranking member of the government or the Nazi party at that time. And then from that, people would work to support this with absolutely no guarantee of anything in return. Examples of this would be people used to work in the car factories over there for Hitler, and they would give them certain stamps that would afford them a vacation if they put in enough work, only to find out that they never issued enough stamps and nobody ever got to go on vacation. It was always a tease, specifically for the war machine that would happen to only perpetuate further power to that top corporate down hierarchical group of the National Socialistic Party that was occurring over there in Nazi Germany at the time. So, what do you want to do? The NRP is like, is there any way we can blend a lot of the tactics that Hitler was using into this very fruitful, very successful program, economic theory program that was occurring in the United States at the time? And that's where we start to see the blend of the National Renaissance Party and what they were trying to promote. So, Jason, can you please continue?
Yeah, and so whenever they began to start this third way that you talked about, they're rejecting communism and capitalism. They're going in favor of this corporate state. What people don't realize is, and I was in Italy and I kind of did some research on Mussolini. He was actually, out of all the fascists, he was the most intelligent, they say. But they modeled this, and Hitler took a lot of ideas from Mussolini because Mussolini was part of that, the Axis, But they rejected class warfare and economic competition. Mm-hmm. And so James H. Madole's contributions to neo-Nazi ideologies were at least as creative. Like many in his generation, he encountered the spiritual teachings. So this is interesting. So here's where he brings, and I want us to get into this. Here's where he takes these economic ideas. He takes these neo-Nazi ideas. He has this hatred that we know that's on the far right. And now he's going to bring the spiritual teachings in the Theosophical Society.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
We all know that religion is a strong polarizer. You can get people to get behind it very quickly on certain religious ideas, whether it's to burn witches or go to war, send children on a crusade, what have you. And you do it all in the name of some sort of higher being. So when this individual starts to take religious ideas and appropriate it to their economic ideas, he starts to blend church and state, and he's playing a very dangerous game. Not only does this individual want Africans and Jews removed from the United States altogether, which Madole considered his new Atlantis, but with that at the same time, he wants to back that up with this literature that he had found from very occult parties. And mind you, Madole was a Freemason and also a member of the Golden Order of the Hermetic Dawn, which we've done many episodes on. So what he found through the Theosophical Society, which was really on the up and up at the time, the information he got from his rituals and rites with the Freemasons in very specific tight groups that a majority of the United States was not a part of, gave him a further sense of elitism. In blending that elitism with his corporate ideologies and massive amounts of hate against certain racial groups, they thought that this was the best thing that they could do going forward, and it caused him and his followers to incite many riots in the New York area, for instance. They would go over and they'd hit like White Castle hamburger joints. Like, is this a joke? Like, neo-Nazis are attacking burger joints in the United States, and this is like their show of powder, and they have like meetings in little halls. But the important point here is that if people can use religion, states of belief, to back up something else that is fundamentally not true, and they can get people to buy into it, it becomes a very powerful false narrative.
Yes.
And what was, Jason, what was the name of the advisor of propaganda for Hitler?
Goebbels.
What did Goebbels say? He said, if you tell a lie long enough and if you tell it big enough, people will soon start to believe it as the truth.
Well, especially if you mask it in, because, and we all know this, the Theosophical Society was part of those German death occult. And a lot of that came through of the belief in that whether you believe it or not doesn't matter, but they had that belief, and Hitler was even sending people all around the world to find this, is that they had a white group of people that were white skinned, that were far advanced, living under the earth. And he believed that these people were the ones that had all the knowledge, and if we could find them and have conversations with them, but this was the whole pure bloodline. And this is where you got into anti-Semitism and stuff like that, just because of this belief in, and then that this whole talk of which we've seen, there have been white people, whether they're different alien extraterrestrial species or whatever it may be, but there were different white people, and each tribe has recorded white people coming to them. But that doesn't mean that because of their skin being white, that they are to be worshipped, or that there's a pure bloodline in the least bit.
And why would super advanced by millions of years extraterrestrials want to hang around with a bunch of neo-Nazi guerrillas that are so barbaric and have so much hate? It's nonsense. But the Theosophical Society, you also have to think about the context of the time. Remember all the mediumship groups? It was hot.
Yes.
People loved it.
Mm-hmm.
They wanted to talk to the dead. So what was Hitler doing? He was also trying to channel, not with the dead, but his occult groups were trying to channel with extraterrestrials. He wanted to speak to this race directly. And that's still more powerful stuff when you can put these ideas of mysticism and awe, certain aspects of the hero's journey, and put it into place on bad ideas, bad religion, bad theology, bad ideologies, bad economics. People are going to buy it.
Yeah, and Raw questioned this when they were talking about channeling and how you can channel different extraterrestrials, because it's just a unified consciousness. But that unified consciousness can be negative oriented.
Yeah. So, and do you think Hitler's going to be able to differentiate between good and bad? No, he's stone cold evil.
100%. This is interesting, though. I want you to know, where do you think James H. Madole learned about the Theosophical Society? This is so interesting.
Where would he have learned about it?
Yeah. So there was a popular adventure stories, science fiction stories at the time. And this dude was part of the Theosophical Society, which I want to clarify because I want us to look this up because I really like this guy a lot. So I like his not him, but
You don't like him. Does this have anything to do with spirits falling out of volcanoes and people have to
no.
do
This is Robert
regressions?
Howard's Conan the Barbarian series.
No way, dude. I loved
and that whole series was based off of theosophical ideas. They used the myths history as background to teach Theosophical Society. Type in Robert Howard Theosophical Society. I don't know if he was connected to it. I love the artwork. Let me just say that. And the Conan story.
Well, do you know who did the artwork?
Yeah, you've showed me that before. It's so bad.
The guy's name's Frank Frazetta. The guy was an absolute legend when it came to painting. So you're telling me the Robert E. Howard Conan the Barbarian series, originally comics, this stuff was fully theosophical?
Yeah, supposedly. So
that's so wild.
Yeah, and so get this. Madole borrowed. So this is how he creates this national Resonance Party and gains popularity. Just think about how somebody could just masterfully figure this out. So he borrowed some from Theosophy. He combined it with Nazi anti-Semitism. He had homegrown American racism, which was happening in that time frame. You got to think this is 1930s, 40s, 50s. And then he added science fiction and popular occult literature. And now he has his own fascist occultism.
But what did he do? He took all the things that were popular, didn't matter how small they were, and he put them into one big stew pot and called it an NRP.
He wrote a book.
I got a bunch of racist. I got a bunch of racist nerds that want to practice magic, and we're going to put on these really funny looking pants designed by Hugo Boss and say that we are the boss.
Well, yeah, exactly. Well, here's the problem: is we're seeing this in gamers. There's a subgroup of neo-Nazi gamers that are, and we saw this nerdy type view. We saw this guy in New Zealand when he came into that mosque and shot all those people.
Yep.
In real life, I mean, this is what happens when you put this ideology and this hatred in somebody's heart. So he wrote a new book called The New Atlantis, a program for an Aryan Garden of Eden in North America.
Oh my God.
The Garden of Eden. So he's saying a perfect Garden of Eden would be, do you not, I guarantee you, if the creation story, all that stuff is, if the creation story is for real and Adam and Eve were made in God's image, I guarantee you they weren't pure white.
I doubt it. They were probably so tan.
They live in a garden.
They were probably looking so tropical. Yeah, they were looking so tropical, like big, long, healthy, lush, dark hair. You know what I mean? Brown eyes.
Yeah, so check this out. He proposed a social order dominated by a strict caste system and racial segregation, centered on the quest to produce the God-Man, a new human species produced by selective breeding, cosmic thinking, specialized training, and occult initiation.
All right, so we're going to have ritualistic cult babies, and we're going to use Darwin's shitty theories, and we're going to write comic books about these ceremonies we're having, and it's going to make godlike little children that have to wear our funny little pants that are going to hate everybody. The whole idea here is to say we are actually insecure about who we are, so we need to put the rest of the world underneath us and assert a false sense of dominance. Because we don't understand the rest of the world, we have to perpetuate hate. We have to take on this model because that's the only thing for themselves where they could say, this makes us important without having to understand. There's no reason to understand the other side if you just pose them as the enemy and say that they're weaker than you. Why would you want to understand?
Yeah, and also, I mean, Anton LaVey, who started the Church of Satan, he had close ties to him and close ties with the Church of Satan for Satanism. So now you
is anyone paying attention? Like, do we see what's going on here?
Well, what's crazy, this is funny, his odd appearance. So when he would give speeches in public, he always wore a 3-button suit with all 3 buttons fastened, black horn-rimmed glasses, and you can see this in Google pictures of him, and a white motorcycle helmet.
This isn't saying anything here, but he did live with his mother in a New York City apartment until he was 50. I'm not saying much, but that is something that I am saying.
Yeah, and he had a security echelon he called the SC of the NRP. and they looked literally like stormtroopers. And they would stand by his flank and his sides.
It's just like anything to make him look like he has this idea of power, but really, if you probably threw one fist at the guy, he'd probably cower down. He'd probably run away.
Oh, yeah, 100%. It would be the same with Hitler.
Yeah. It's just,
but he modeled his SE after the SS, which was paramilitary ethos with occult training. And this is how bad it is. And I want you to see this. This is crazy.
Tell me.
So this is how bad this ideology hits the United States. And let me see if I can find this. So I want you to type in on Google KSK Germany. KSK Germany. These are the super special forces of the German army.
Yeah, Commando.
These are the commandos. These are the badass. Germany had to disband the KSK.
Why is that?
Because they got super far right.
Unbelievable.
In leadership, read about it, and they were thinking that they could even.
Oh yeah, several far right incidences with the commandos.
They had to disband their whole special forces, the elite special forces, because this ideology, the same stupid ideology that James H. Madole is out there spewing this hate, got into these, and we're seeing this here in the United States too. With and I'm not going anything. I have a lot of people that I know that are really good people in the military. But I saw this in the Marine Corps. I saw this, and you see it even more now, especially in Europe.
It's a constant thing. And people who have some sort of false perspectives in their mind will take a victim mentality in some stance and then appropriate their current positions in life, blend the two together, and then sink their teeth into these ideologies of hate, because it makes them feel better, because they don't have to focus on really all these other things internally that they're not putting focus on. And so it doesn't, listen, you already put a gun in some people's hands. They already start to feel powerful. Now you start to give them an ideology with a gun. Well, that's when you got Taliban, right? Now you hyper train these guys, full resources. Oh, and by the way, they're also pretty educated. What's going to happen? You're going to have these KSK groups. You're going to have far right-wing groups doing these same sort of things, thinking that they can just do whatever they want. And these narratives can be so completely false. They can be so hateful. They can just be so untrue, but it is their reality.
And I want to close this and talk about this, because we know in 1979 he died, and then NRP disbanded immediately. If Trump dies now, I wish no death for anyone, but if he died right now, QAnon would just disband.
Because they got nothing to cheer for.
Yeah, when Hitler, when everything was going to hell and all that, and then the ideology just kind of lives on and it moves to another. But any type of, whether it's far right, far left, spiritual gurus, whatever it may be, when one thing is based off of one person, there's free will issues here.
Yeah. Why? Because they give all their power to that one individual.
Mm-hmm.
That one individual is the determining factor for all of the truths that apparently these people live in. But there's one thing. There's only one thing in this entire universe and creation that lasts forever. It's not the guru. It's not the neo-Nazi leader. It's not your car. It's not a metal safe. It's none of that shit. It's the truth. Truth is the one thing that outlasts all ideas, all material things. And that's something that you have to focus on and always remember. And so realize that if you live more and more in this idea, these states of belief, attaching yourself to these gurus, getting the power from them, the more short-lived that experience is going to be for yourself. Do you track with that, Jason?
Yes. And in closing, the truth that will outlive us all is one of our sponsors, Turtle.co.
Yes.
How is that truth that will outlive us all? We always think of Bitcoin, and everybody says Bitcoin is truth. I want people to kind of understand this. Can you close us out by talking about Turtle.co?
Yeah. Turtle.co is the only marketplace in the world that allows individuals to take the data they create and make money from it. And it's not really about the making money that's important for the truth. It's the idea that we unlock human potential. We unlock the idea of human understanding through the sharing of information, incentivized through payment. And so at Turtle, individuals can go there and they can buy and sell data about anything on any topic, on any truth, on any state of belief at any time for any reason. And they can do it 24/7 on the total marketplace. So if you're thinking about truth and the thing that outlasts us all, it's not us leading the company or us being on this podcast. It's the idea that human beings have come together to share their knowledge and further their understanding of one another and the world and universe with which they reside in. And that happens on the total marketplace.
I love that.
Thank you very much, Jason, for joining me this beautiful Friday here in New Mexico. And hopefully we can see each other in the studio soon.